all of you, and it's my pleasure to start one of our first meetups on the topic of natural farming uh, here today. And I would like to introduce all of you to our expert speaker today we have, who is Sudhakar, and our moderator, who is Digvijay Chaudhary. And all welcome all the participants and the panelists. So I would like to give a little bit brief about Sudhakar. Sudhakar is an TNU alumnus and an experienced agronomist. He has experienced working with various agri companies, starting in the whole ecosystem, starting from HDFC to TCS Digital Farming Initiatives. He not only has experience on working closely with the farmers and the FPOs, but his speciality of all his experience on agronomist, he has also closely worked with the tech side of people who are actually trying to digitize this whole agricultural view. Uh, Coming to our moderator, Digvijay Chaudhary. He is our IIT alumnus and very experienced person. From a long time, he has been associated with Art of Living and a dedicated member of Art of Living community. All his initiatives are associated with sustainability, and it's very inspiring to see how he has dedicated his cause. Currently, he is a CEO of a company called Sobus, and I will hand it over to Digvijay to tell us and educate us more on uh, his initiative as well as the topic of today. So, handing over to Digvijay for moderating the whole session.
Well, good morning to everyone. And it's a small, cozy group we have here today. And we are hoping that this will be the start of something very interesting and useful for a lot of the alumni, IIT Bombay alumni in Bangalore to begin with. And this initiative is basically to address a growing need or an intersection of needs actually. And I will just highlight those areas so that it kind of sets a framework for what we are going to be doing hopefully over the next few months. One is that there is a growing awareness among people about the quality of food that we eat, and that has kind of accelerated even further. The entire awareness around food has also now grown to awareness around agriculture thanks to COVID. So that is one aspect of our basic necessity, essential commodities related to food, which has been on the upswing. On the other side, because of this awareness, there is a greater number of people, many of our alumni who have either already started involving themselves in agriculture related activities or are keen to know more and dip their feet in. It could be from doing a home food garden to maybe having a piece of land which they own and they're thinking about cultivating it further, or to actually go into it in a professional manner even. So there's this entire spectrum, but what it illustrates is the growing interest of participating in the field of agriculture and farming. And the third aspect is overall impact of the agriculture on the environment. That is also taking center stage because of the often excessive use of pesticides or fertilizers, which in some ways damages the soil. We have heard that it contaminates the water. Of course, there are so many diseases, cancers, and other things which are more predominant now, which are often attributed to contamination even of the food chain. So all of these converging together brings us to the topic of the day, which is to look at organic or more specifically natural farming methods, which is the first in the series of webinars that we intend to do. on this topic of great relevance as well as interest currently. And the idea is we start with the overview we'll start with a presentation from on organic and natural farming for about 15 minutes, where he will talk. Of course, we can always have questions if at the end, but if there's something critical we want to know right in the middle and before we go ahead, feel free to do that also. Otherwise, the rest of the questions we'll take in the Q&A at the end of the talk. And this is a small group, it's a cozy group, so will not be too formal, and I think we'll have a great interaction and hopefully look back on today's session as the start of something very, very useful for the entire alumni community. So with that, I hand over to Sudhakar. The floor is yours, Sudhakar.
Yeah, hi, Digvijay. Hi, Richa. Thanks for inviting me for this particular discussion. So before we get into the discussion, I just like to inform you is that I've been with this particular agriculture and ag-tech thing with the farmers interaction with close to more than 14 years. So I had a little bit of experience in ag finance, ag tech, and farmer aggregation unit, that is FPU, and farmer cooperatives, how technology can support them. Given that context, the topic for the day, it's natural farming importance. I can say what for natural farming is being done. It's being important for the future generation, how it needs to be done and all. So without going anything further, we will just start off with the things with the presentation. What we are, the presentation right now is that I would like to convey the flow. The flow that we are just going to present is what is the types of farmings are there: natural farming, organic farming, conventional farming, and what is the difference between natural and conventional things. What is the financial aspect of it? I can say economics aspect of that. Then what is the models that are available? How a user or a farmer needs to get a organic certification, and finally how do we can scale it up. That's the flow of our presentation. Given that context, this slide you can see what are all the types of farmings we are having. You are having natural farming, organic farming, conventional farming. Natural farming is one aspect. It is our age-old practices. Our forefathers, used to do that. That means they used to have the farm at the backside of their house and all. They will not do any type of deep plowing. They will not do any type of chemical fertilizer application, no weeding, no plant protection. Just like that, they will throw this particular crop, the crop will started growing. I can cite one example in natural farming, permaculture. So it's like every crop, tree crop, normal crop, everything will be growing normally, and we will be getting into that particular stuff. That's we call that natural farming. The second thing is the organic farming. Could you go back to the organic farming? The second thing is the organic farming, which is mainly into this particular scenario. It provides us the use of more of the crop residue, animal manures, organic waste, all those factors is consideration for organic farming. The last one is the conventional farming. Right now, what the farmers are doing, going for the high-yielding genetically modified seed or a hybrid seed, usage of more fertilizer, pesticides, which will not only impact the soil as well as the environment, and also it is having a huge impact in the user or the consumer health. So the next thing is that what is the difference between the natural farming and the conventional farming? So this is the thing. So if you see in this particular slide, you can see how a conventional farming, what is the impact that is. Of course, in conventional farming, you will have huge yield. It will give you better employment to the worker. But you see the other aspect, the profitability angle, and also the quality aspect, environmental support aspect, exposure to pesticide, all these factors, conventional farming are a little bit low. When you compare with organic farming or natural farming, all these factors, mainly quality will be good, it enhances the soil quality, it maintains the soil biodiversity, or the environmental biodiversity, yield is also over a period of time it will be getting increased. And the major key factor is the pollution aspect, it is minimized. So that is the thing, that in an organic way or a natural way of things, we can have a difference between a conventional or an organic farming. Conventional is nothing but I want to get something on a faster basis, so I'm exploiting the nature. Organic is something that I'm going along with the nature. A natural farming is something like I'm going along with the nature, gelling along with the nature. I'm utilizing whatever the things that is there in the nature without harming anything. So I am making sure that I am living and let living others, and I have to join in this particular thing. That's a key thing with respect to the organic and the natural farming. Could you go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Yeah. See, the important thing here. Sorry, earlier one. Yeah. So I just gave you a comparative analysis between an conventional farming and an organic farming. This is the live case. I just took something from Uttarakhand, mainly for a crop like wheat and sugarcane. So for a wheat crop is like a lazy crop, I can say. It's one of the key crop that is being grown in Rabi season. Starting from November, it gets harvested in March end or April. So if someone wants to go with a conventional thing, the cost is around 20,000. But someone wants to go with an organic thing or a natural thing, the cost is somewhere around 16,000. But this organic cost, you can say that that particular stuff, no, it will take a little bit of time. So he has to make sure that the user has to understand the concept of organic thing, preparation of this Jivamrit, Bijamrit, all these tools that is required for this input, and also the seed thing. So that's the thing is required when you compare with an organic as a conventional. But we do in comparative analysis to a crop like wheat or sugarcane and all, it is having a lesser cost when you compare with a conventional cost, because we are not at all using the chemical pesticides and the chemical fertilizers, because chemical fertilizer and chemical pesticides are the key cost, and also the hybrid seeds are the key cost component input in a conventional method. So this is in a very brief nutshell. There are other factors, other crops also we are having the crops like rice also we have done a comparative analysis that is also available. Bottom line is that in organic or natural farming, the cost it will be little lesser when you compare it with the cost of cultivation, when you compare it with the conventional cost. Next slide, please. So now we gone with what is the type of farming, then what is the differences, and what is the cost of cultivation. Now we exactly come into the what is the practices, what is natural farming practices is all about. Here we are going to see the practices. One is this. Could you go to the next slide, please? So here we are. There are 4 wheels. If you see this zero budget natural farming by Mr. Subhash Palekar, he used to sell these 4 wheels. The first wheel of the preparation for a zero budget natural farming is Bijamrit. The next one is the Jivamrit. The third one is the mulching. The fourth one is the Vapasa. Bijamrit is nothing but what is the key input? Seed. I am making sure the input, that seed, it is treated well with the help of cow dung in a more natural way, with the help of beneficial microorganism. That is very critical. How it is being prepared, it has been given in the flow. I need to have, for every natural farming or organic farming, we need to have one thing, we need to be very clear, we need to have native breed. We should not have this HF or other breed which comes from other country. No, we should have our own native breed. So that is very critical, that is very required. So based on that, we need to come up with this particular preparation of Bijamrit is how do we prepare the seed treatment of Bijamrit? We need to have cow dung, cow urine mixed with water, and then we need to soak it. There are a lot of procedures are there, and it is not a tedious procedure at all. It is an easy procedure we can very well do at our farm, provided if we have at least 1 or 2 cow at our farm. These things can be done at a good pace. Could you go to the next slide, please? Now we said about the Bijamrit. Now we come to the Jivamrit. Jivamrit is nothing but it is a Jiva Amritam. It is Jiva is life. So for providing life to the crop, the soil is the key component. So we are reviving the soil. How we are reviving the soil is that we are making sure that the root system are enhanced, which are all the nutrients which are nearer to the root system, mainly like phosphorus, calcium, and nitrogen, which are all in unavailable form. The Jivamrit, it will make them to be in a very available form, so that the root can easily take them into the crop, and it can grow very well. How it is prepared, it has been listed over here in the form of a flow. Here for preparation Jivamrit, we need to have cow dung with urine with water, and we need to add with the jaggery and the pulse floor, because it is having that particular component, because the beneficial microorganism, it will be more utilized for this to generate this particular Jivamrit. For that only we are using this jaggery and the pulse floor into this picture. Could you come to the next slide, please? See, the third important thing when we say about in the zero budget natural farming, one is the Bijamrit, another one is the Jivamrit. The third one is the mulching. Mulching is nothing but I am just making sure that the canopy or the residue which are available in my farm crop, I'm just making sure it is being covered to my crop. How the mulching helps? The mulching helps in maintaining the soil moisture. The moisture retention, that is very critical for a crop, because in case if water is not available, this mulching will help the farmers or the user in terms of providing sharing this particular nutrient water stuff in a very slow pace, which will be required for the crop. And also this mulching, it will suppress the weed growth, because once we have the mulching sheet ready with the mulching thing ready with the crop, it will suppress the growth of the other crop, which is other plant, which is nothing but weeds. That's very critical. What are all the factors that we can go for in mulching? We can have straw, leaves, corn, sawdust, everything can be added into the soil. And because why these components are added in the soil? Because when we spray the water percolates, and it is being released to the crop by this mulching sheet. It just acts as a protector. The final one is the Vapasa. Vapasa is nothing but I need to maintain the soil moisture. We say that I just want to go with the application of the Jivamrit, Bijamrit, mulching sheet. But at the end of the day, what are all the application that I did naturally, the soil moisture needs to be there. Unless moisture level is not maintained, all the work effort that we did, no, it will be more futile. That's where the Vapasa, that particular technique of soil moisture maintenance, plays a very critical role. Now there are four concepts here. One, we have to develop the seed. The another one is that we have to enrich the soil. The third one is the pesticide, pest and disease management, which is in the next slide. It is in a detailed way. Could you come to the next slide, please? Yeah, there are three different aspects of pest management naturally. What is that? One is the Agni Astra, the other one is the Brahmastra, the third one is the Neemastra. Agni Astra, as the name denotes, it's fire. The fire is nothing but the pungency. The pungency level, it's being provided by the chili crop and also the garlic. So these crops, the pungency factor, once it mixed with the neem and the cow dung, it will completely arrest the growth of the pest, mainly like stem borer, fruit borer, pod borer for the leaf folder. So this is very critical. When you take a crop like paddy or a wheat, stem borer is very critical. It will completely devastate the crop, not only at the initial stage and also when the crop is at the flowering stage. The Brahmastra is nothing but I am taking neem with the help of fruits and other fruit related stuff. I am just adding along with desi cow urine, and I will be mixing the tub, and then I will be spraying these things. This also used as a Brahmastra. The third one is the Neem Hastra. Neem Hastra, our forefather used to have this particular stuff. Neem with ginger, neem with turmeric. These are all the key pillars for natural farming. With the help of neem, we are just mixing with the cow dung and the traditional desi cow urine, And this astra, this will be used mainly for the sucking pest, mealybugs. You might have seen in papaya there are white sucking pests will be there. We call this mealybug. And the small things will be there in onion crops and all that we use called as aphids. So for these are all mainly sucking pests. In order to arrest the growth of the sucking pest, neem astra is very important. The next slide, please. You can see how this Agni Astra, Brahma Astra, and the Neem Astra are prepared. So it's basically the key component of all the things are two things are very key component. One is the desi cow urine and the cow dung. That, but the materials will change. If you have Agni Astra, you have green chili, you have neem crush, you have tobacco, all these factors, and then you have garlic. We need to mix that particular stuff in a particular proportion. We need to boil it, and then we need to do a fermentation for 24 hours. And the next day after 24 hours, we need to clean with a clean cloth that filter the liquid. We need to mix with a tank, and then we need to spray. This is how the Agni Astra, Brahma Astra, and the Neem Astra has been prepared. So these are all the things that is already there in our ecosystem. We are just not asking the people to come up with a new stuff. We are just asking, these are all material which are available with us. We are utilizing that for our whole ecosystem benefit. Now comes to the economic viability. People may ask, what is there in this particular thing only for natural farming, organic farming? If something goes wrong, what will be the thing, how I can get the benefit? Yes, there are certain systems are there. That system we used to call that's an integrated farming system. Could you go to the next slide, please? The integrated farming system is nothing but it is a system which enhances. We used to call now one loss is another one's gain. Something like if one crop, paddy crop is yield is lost, but the revenue that I was about to get from the loss of the paddy, even though if I'm getting encounter any loss, if I'm growing with the alternative, something like livestock, something like fisheries, something like silviculture trees, that will be helping me in terms of coming up with this particular thing. That's the integrated farming thing is all about, which mainly reduces cost, improves the soil health. What are all the components in integrated farming system? It is crop husbandry, livestock, horticulture, aquaculture, sericulture, agroforestry. All these components are embedded into the integrated farming system. There are a lot many systems are available. It is like agri silvipastoral system, agri livestock system, agri fishery system. So this is some of the system that I just gave you an example. This is agri silvipastoral system. Agri is agriculture, silvi is forest related stuff, pastoral thing is growing of pasture, and we are having three different things in the same field of land. How it is being used? Agriculture thing, it will be used for the consumer, and the silvical thing that litters from that leaf litter that will be used as a manure to the agriculture crop, pasture thing that can be grazed, that can be used for the graze for our livestock. So it is accommodating that. The second system is rice duck farming. It is mainly predominantly northeast India, where the dairy and all the things are mostly important over there. Basically, the duck or this livestock, they are very good people in terms of supporting the farming ecosystem, mainly in terms of eating the eggs, eggs and the insects which is there in the water. That one it is there. The third one is the rice fishing farming system. The fish, what it will do is that it will improve the soil poration, and it also eats the insects, all this stuff, and also it will eat some of the weeds also. So like in this context, if we have this multiple thing within a single ecosystem, it's like if something goes wrong, the other components helps me. This is a live example of an integrated farming system. Next slide, please, Richa. So the next slide is that how, okay, I got to know about the farming, I got to know about how to prepare, I got to know about the models, I can come up with an integrated stuff. Then with whom I need to approach, what is the process that I need to follow? Yes, Government of India had come up with a process called a new program for organic farming. Could you come to the next slide, please? Yeah, there are certain things which has come up by the Government of India, which is called as NPOP, National Program for Organic Production, with the set objectives as dovetailed below. That means if someone wants to get a certification through NPOP, the land needs to be completely done through only organic method. All the inputs needs to be a natural mode. At any cost, there should not be any genetically modified input or any irrational technology. All this process that we have developed, both physical, biological, mechanical, all needs to be maintained in a natural way. At any cost, no contamination needs to come from the subsequent field to my field in which I am going purely organic. And these practices needs to be in a sustainable basis. That means everything needs to be natural and everything needs to be all ecocentric, ecosystem allied one. Could you go to the next slide, please? See, okay, I got to know about the NPOP. How an accreditation agencies or a body, something like companies like EcoCert or IndoCert, EcoCert, these are all some of the companies, they will come to our farm and they will inspect whether this particular farm is as per NPOP guidelines. What they will do is that they will give these documentation to the farmers. They will just give the operational guidelines to the farmers, how they need to do. There will be an agreement. There will be a fees needs to be paid by the body, by the farmers to the body, and there will be an inspection team. And the inspection team will be by the internal auditor as well as an external inspector, and all this farming methodology, process, guidelines, everything needs to be documented. At any point of time, someone may come and then inspect. During that time, we need to show to them what we have done till today and what we are about to do for the next 2 or 3 months in order to get a crop. This is the process that I've done. All the things needs to be there black and white, and there will be complete compliance verification done by these audits and this by the internal as well as the external inspector, and they will be reviewing a decision and they will be giving the certification. We need to know that for getting the certification we need to wait for 3 years. So why 3 years? I'll tell you. For any soil which is already gone with the application of more amount of pesticide or chemical fertilizers, it takes at least for 2 or 3 years, I can say 1 or 2 years, for the soil beneficial microbes to be revived. And that revival process needs to be sustained with the crop canopy, with the crop that we are going to do. That's why these people have come up with this particular thing of providing certification of organic things for 3 years. And this will be utilized by GGAP also. GGAP is the Global Agriculture Practice or Good Agriculture Agronomic Practice. What are the things that we can say? We have the certification, we can sell the produce across the globe. But getting a GGAP or a Global Agriculture certificate, it's a very tedious process, because it's something like we need to be completely in-depth into this. All these factors that needs to be there, needs to be documented, needs to be evaluated. But if we follow it systematically, it is not a difficult task at all. Could you come to the next slide, please? Yeah. So the next slide, it's basically, okay, I got this particular methodology of organic farming, models I've selected, I know how to get the certification and all. Then how I can market this particular produce? Marketing of a particular produce can be done under the current scenario in Indian context is either through aggregation or through by any contract farming companies or with the help of farmer producer organization. Gone are those days in 60s and 70s, I can say 70s and 80s, where these middlemen or the procurer, they will directly come to the farmer's field and then say that, "Bhai sir, what is there in your field? I will take." That tradition has been completely gone. 90s and 2000, early 2000, we got the concept of SHGs, self-help groups or farmer groups. In late 2000, we got in the concept of farmer producer organization. Farmer producer organization is nothing but it's an aggregation unit where 1,000 farmers, or I can say 1,000 farmers within the 3 or 4 villages or 1 or 2 villages join together with a common objective. and the objective is what we need to cultivate collectively, and then we need to get a better reason, a better price without having much amount of money given to the middleman. And then we need to make sure that the produce that we are producing, it's eco-friendly. That's the major concept. So with this particular logic of farmer producer organization, the concept of natural farming growth, development and all needs to be imbibed by proper training and capacity building. Then only this particular natural farming rollout can be done very effectively. So with whom with the farmer needs to approach for about the FPOs, our member needs to approach is that they can approach NABARD, National Agriculture Bank of Rural Development, which is there in each district, or they can approach nearby local agriculture or horticulture department where they have been mandated to form an FPO. Government of India under this particular budget, they have mandated to form 10,000 FPO for this particular year. And for the formation of one FPO, Government of India is giving 15 lakhs grant at the end of 1 year. So 1,000 farmers needs to pay certain share capital. The share capital is 1,000 rupees. At the end of 1 year, what is the amount of share capital that they paid? The corresponding amount the government will be giving them as a grant. There are a lot of schemes are there with the FPO, wherein organic farming development can be a good value add for the farmer base. This is in a very nutshell. I just gave you a preview about what is organic farming or natural farming is all about, how the difference it is there between natural and conventional, what are the models, what is the economics behind that, and how it is needs to be branded, how it needs to be scaled up. Now I believe Richa, Mr. Digvijay, I just completed the time, I think within 20 minutes.
So
Go ahead.
that was yeah. So that was a really good overview that you gave us, Sudhakar. I think you took more time, but I think it's very useful that you did this because I think a lot of the participants would like to get that overview, because there's so much of information out there that sometimes it gets confusing, and you have streamlined it very nicely to tell what organic farming, natural farming is about. So thank you for that. We have a few questions that came yesterday as well as today, and we'll select some of them in the time available. So one high level thought that comes to a lot of people want to get into organic farming. Two questions. One is, what is the scale necessary to do this? As in, like, can you do it even, say, in an urban farming scenario on a rooftop garden? Then is it possible? One. And related to that is the economic part of it, that there are so many benefits that you have outlined for organic farming. But why is it that it is not then the mainstream way of doing things? So I thought these are kind of related questions that put them together.
Yeah. That's a good question, Vijay. See, organic farming or a natural farming is a concept which is right now predominantly coming up with. In a vast country like India, in a huge population, in order to feed these particular people, a huge population, government can't overnight shift this particular farming. They have to staggered approach, people used to say, no? Let's say, for example, if a particular village or a district happens to be there, they need to find out a particular hotspot where this particular thing can be started up well as a concept. And slowly the training and the capacity building needs to be given to the farmers or the user, explaining about the benefit of this particular thing. We need to clearly convey to the user, you can't expect anything of a higher yield within one season. No, if you have something in that mind, please don't come for this particular stuff, because it will take at least 2 or 3 years for this particular concept to be giving a better, I can say, for a feasible return to the user. Because first of all, we need to make sure the concept of farming, the soil, all these factors associated needs to be enriched. To answer to your question in a nutshell, yes, organic farming can be a replacement of the conventional farming. I will say that it will be a slow roller in a conventional way, in the sense that conventional farming is having huge number, organic farming needs to be it needs a cyclic way. That's what I can say.
Is there a lot of investment needed for someone to start off? Some people might have a 1 acre, 2 acre piece of land also among the group here. What
We
kind
don't
of
need
investments are needed to get started? On the running costs, you told that input costs are lower. But what about
absolutely.
the basic infrastructure?
See, infrastructure, we don't need more, sir. What we need to have is that I need to have 1 or 2 acres. I need to know the soil. First of all, what we need to do is that there are Navadanya or 9 crops are there. I will tell you. We can take 3 oil seeds, 3 pulses, and 3 grains. Just ask the user to sow this particular anything like horse gram, pulses, and gingerly, the other 2 or 3 crops, just to sow that for 1 or 2 acres. Till that getting it to the flowering stage, we need to incorporate that into soil. That's the first stage of asking the farmers to fine tune into an organic way. We will not be having more cost into that. The second thing what we need to do is that we need to have our desi cow. We need to have 1 or 2 desi cow, because for preparing all the things like panchakavya, jivamrit, bijamrit, the cow dung and the cow urine, desi cow, it is very, very critical. There we need to have some investment. Say for example, desi, sometimes if you go to a traditional good desi cow, 50,000, 60,000 will be for one cattle. If you take someone wants to take 1 or 2, it will be 1,20,000 or 1,30,000. That's the second step. Then the third is that if we want to go with an organic thing, we need to have for the vermicompost. Vermicompost, it's not that of a huge investment. I need to have 12 feet width, 6 feet depth, and 3 feet width. That's enough. Then what are all the straw, what are all the waste that is there, I can just needs to incorporate into that. Within 24 to 40 days, the earthworm will start growing, and within 3 or 4 months I can harvest. I can do it in the main field. Bottom line is that we are not going to have a huge investment in organic farming. No, not at all. But we need to make sure that the entities that we are required, something like cows, all the things and all, needs to be desi. And the soil, we need to make sure that in terms of what are the crops that I told you, the 9 crops, any 2 crops for this season. We used to have this green manure crop, no? In Tamil, we used to call this inji pundu, the pundu, that and all, that we need to trample into the soil. That's why we are just reviving the soil microbes or soil organics in a sequential way.
So these inputs, at what scale of the farming does it become feasible? And if someone wants to do like a home, the kitchen garden with organic produce, is there any possibility for them, or you have to work at this minimum level where you need to get a cow and things like that? No. These are things that normal person will think about. How do I get a cow and create all of this? So can you address that?
You see, we don't need to cow at all, but we need to have the Jivamrit or the Bijamrit. There are a lot of organizations are there which they're supplying it. We need to get in touch with them, and then we need to say that just provide me this particular thing to that. We are having everywhere in a main district, main places and all. We have that store, organic store, where these particular components are being provided. To answer to your first query of home garden, kitchen garden, in the home garden itself, we can make compost. We need to have huge drum, and then we need to have pose. At the bottom, we need to have layer of litter leaves and all. On top of that, what are the household waste. On top of that, if you want to add some sort of grains and all, if you can put it, we need to drill it out 3 or 4 days. That home-based compost can be made. But we need to make sure that lemon and the tamarind and all these things related stuff should not be put into the compost, which will have a huge impact. So that's the key thing. The third is that, since you told about the home garden, what are the things that we are taking in our house? Buttermilk. Buttermilk can be mixed with water, and that can be given as a spray to control sucking pest. What are the things that we have, that white fly or white thing we are getting in papayas and all, no? That can be controlled by this buttermilk. It is easy. If someone wants to do in household stuff with a lesser thing, it can be done. If you want to do it in a larger scale, if they're not having cows and all, not an issue. There are a lot of agencies, lot of associations are there who are supporting it. They can get very well from this zero budget natural farming Subhash Palekar group. In Tamil Nadu, we are having Namadwar group, Namadwar organic group. In Karnataka, Andhra, Maharashtra, we are having zero budget natural farming group, where they are having professional progressive farmers. They are ready to support these key inputs to the real-time progressive first farmers.
No, this is wonderful to hear. But here is something which I've heard from some of the potential practitioners. People like Shri Subhash Palekar, they have done path-breaking work in this area. But also in their trainings, they are somewhat very strict on certain methodologies to be followed. And what to do and what not to do also Subhash Palekar is very, very insistent on. And that becomes a little intimidating for some of the entrants into this. So what I hear you saying is, what is your thought in terms of natural farming? Is it still natural farming even if you dilute the practices that ZBNF practices of Subhash Palekar ji? Of course, without adding any chemical fertilizers and things. But is there a leeway there, or is it a very strict idea that is?
Yeah. So one thing we need to make sure is that there is no hard and fast rule that we need to follow with one concept and we should not follow with the other concept. No. Natural farming is nothing but we need to do farming in a more natural way. That's the concept. We should not go for chemical thing at all. Second, there should not be zero tillage or minimum tillage. If you're not doing tillage, that's enough. What are all the crop residues that is there? I am utilizing those residues. It can be from vegetables, it can be from fruits, or it can be from anything. I'm utilizing this to my present crop more organically, nothing else. Fine, fair enough. Then we will make sure that what are all the things that Bijamrit, Jivamrit for the development of that stuff, that can be done. There is no hard and fast rule that someone wants to do this, someone wants to do that, because there, at the end of the day, the availability factor is also one key component. The knowledge level acceptance by the user, because I cannot go to a particular farmer who says that, sir, I know what you are saying, but currently practical situation, it is difficult for me. Please allow me with some waiver. Okay, I'm giving you waiver, but you should not, at any cost, you should not go for chemical stuff. If they go for chemical stuff, then that is wrong.
This is very encouraging for the newbies, and I wanted to deal with that first, so that people don't feel that it is something that is wonderful, but not for me because of certain reasons. So you have really answered those queries to make people comfortable. Let me go and take a more of a ecosystem level questions. Now, there is so much talk about the farming reforms that are taking place. That we are saying it's a 1991 moment for agriculture. What is its relevance to the organic / natural farming piece of this thing at a high level? If you can touch upon that, that'll be useful.
Sir, I just got your thing, just breakdown. You are telling about the 1991, then I got disconnected. Could you tell me once again, please?
So they are saying it's a significant shift happening in agriculture because of the major reforms that have taken place. It is almost like the 1991 moment for the rest of the economy. So how does this relate, or can you touch upon how it will impact organic / natural farming? What are the reforms are happening?
See, the reform right now, government has come up with I'll tell you, this contract farming amalgamation and this farmer producer organization rollout. So if you have this particular concept, needs to be scaled up in a detailed way within a farmers. At the same time, the biodiversity, the environmental balance in terms of food safety and food quality, the concept of organic or natural farming plays a very pivotal role. If you ask me, it can be done within a year. I will strictly say no. Practically, it is not possible. Next to 5 years, it is difficult. But if you have a vision, next 10 to 15 years, I envisage a portion of the material that comes from India, from Northeast, it will be organic. I can vouch and then I give it to you. That is doable, provided everyone needs to play a huge role into that. It's not only government. Government is just acting as a catalyst. The real user is the farmer, who is the grower. The other one is the procurer. Because all the paper, okay, we can put it in the ecosystem partners, ecosystem players. In this, I am including bankers, insurers are also. They are just as a reflector at the back end because they are all the risk mitigator, risk elevator. I'm not coming those people into the picture, but they are also going to be key players. To answer your question, yes, contract farming or the FPOs, organic thing, it's the need of the hour, but it needs to be rolled out in a more rationalistic way because we are having huge population and asking every farmer to go for organic farming, natural farming from tomorrow, it is not at all possible. Farmer will say that, no, sir, I need to have money for this. Where I will go? If you go to the government.
So that, sorry to interrupt, just to paraphrase, sum it up because of the time constraint, paraphrase this, what I hear you saying is, it is a significant change, these reforms, and in the long term, they're going to create a lot of impact, including on organic natural farming through the contract farming models, through the market connect via FPOs and other ways.
Sikkim is live example. Yeah.
Like sorry. Yeah, so that it might not be an overnight change or significant change unless you are a major player in the ecosystem right now. But in the long term, there'll be a significant change. Is that a right way to look at these reforms?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Now there's one very important thing, which is probably the most important question for the profile of attendees that we have. Many of them might be startups or the IT or tech side. And so agri-tech is the thing which comes more naturally to them. The agri part is more of unknown and more the tech part which is known. So to get into agriculture via the agri-tech play, what is the significance or opportunities around that for natural organic farming, for doing agri-tech?
See, for agri-tech people, company who wants to do a startup with their farmers, main thing is that from a natural farming perspective point of view, first level is the farm profiling, farm management, geo-referencing, starting from that particular farm management aspect onwards, we can do a traceability aspect. So what are all the components from an ag tech perspective point of view that is there from an farm management stuff, traceability stuff, through the remote sensing and that particular thing, through the AI stuff, through the drone mechanism, anything can be done with the monitoring of the thing. These are all the components that in natural farming or organic farming, we can very well probe into the picture. Because now this AgTech, with the help of the COVID, it has given a huge disruption all across the supply chain, starting from the selection of the seeds, starting from my land preparation to what type of stuff that I need to do, where do I need to market, with whom I need to market. I will have already supply chain enabled. AgTech can play a huge impact in the supply chain enhancement perspective point of view, number one. Number two is the, as I told you, I can cite one example. That is a chili farmer producer organization in Madurai, near Madurai, Virudunagar place, where they are having 1,000 farmers. The company name was Garden Valley. And they used to sell this particular garden, that chili that is being produced to US and Europe. They have the traceability mechanism. The traceability mechanism was provided by cropping company. So how they did was that once the farmer starts that, they are registering the farmer, the soil profiling, the farm profiling, georeference, everything has been done. And chili is 150 days crop. What are the stages at what type of activity farmer needs to do? Everything is monitored digitally. The third stuff is that where they are going to do is that the consumer in US and Europe, through that barcode, they can very well say that, yes, I am utilizing the chili which I am going to consume today, that coming from India, southern part of India, from Madurai. So these are all the key areas or key components where AgTech can play a very huge impact, starting from farm management, traceability angle, remote sensing and other stuff that can play a huge impact role. I would request to a startup to focus one component. not in all the things. If someone wants to go with a traceability, let them do a deep dive into the traceability part and then do a better thing on that. Then they can collaborate with other players. Taking all the things into a single thing, it will be difficult for them to do for a startup to do because of costing factor.
Good. That gives a good overview of the areas where agri-tech interventions can add value. So I would sum up today's this thing that Sudhakar, we have got a really good overview from you of the overall organic natural farming space and the kind of issues that come up, the kind of perspectives we need to have to be able to make right decisions, and the kind of opportunities that exist in the space, and with a little bit of a touch point on where the overall ecosystem is. So I think as a starter, it is, I think it will be very valuable for the participants. We could take one or two live questions from the other participants if you have any, as the couple of questions I think we have time for. Anyone would like to ask from the attendees, panelists?
So I think I can request Roshan to maybe introduce himself first and then maybe ask a question. And even if you could share your, in short, you could share your experience with agri.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Roshan and I own multiple farms. Primary one being a coffee, pepper and timber plantation at Sakleshpur. Sudhakar, firstly, I must congratulate you for your amazing knowledge and experience, in this matter. I want to ask you, I saw a photograph there, which was the rice and the fisheries, fish farming. This, firstly, I want to ask you where is this, which region is this being done actively in? And this combination of rice and fisheries, even Fisheries Institute and all that has been promising, or proposing, does it come out remunerative? Because the projections they have is actually very, very lucrative,
Yeah, sir, that's one of the important integrated farming management system that is being predominantly done in eastern part of India, mainly states like West Bengal, the Odisha, the other area, where fish is also one of their daily food. And this particular stuff, if you ask, it comes from Burma, Myanmar. That particular area, this particular concept of fish rice ecosystem plays a very critical role. See, rice is one crop which is a shallow rooted one, and which is 15 to 30 centimeter, not more than 40 centimeter. You have the root zone, that's it. The fish, what it will do is that it will go in between that particular root zone, and then it will remove that insect, pest, and other things, and then it will be free for the roots to absorb the nutrient, even if it happens to be flooded. Not an issue. That will be done. The second key thing is that the fishes removes the weeds. That's the second thing. And it is also in a flooded thing where the fish is also getting its own requirement of water. That's number 3. Number 4 is that we can harvest the fish first. If it happens to be a short duration, like 3 or 4 months, I think Katla is one variety, if I'm right. It can be harvested in 3 or 4 months. Then we can harvest paddy. So that concept can be rolled out well. But we need to understand whether in my farm it is doable, because we need to have a farm pond ready or a crop ready. That thing needs to be done.
Actually, what happens is like last time this fisheries scientists had visited my farm also. So, it seems to be very lucrative because, per fish seed they sell, Fisheries Institute is 3 rupees 50 paise or something.
Yes.
And as you are saying, it's hardly some 90 days or 120 days gestation period, some thing. And then, the price is, so literally it is a very, very, so is it being done by a lot of people in this southern part of India also?
Yeah, southern part of India they're doing, especially in Tamil Nadu and I can say some part of Andhra, they are doing it, but not with the rice ecosystem. They have separately as a farm pond. On top of that, they have that farm pond. On top of that farm pond, they have the goat rearing unit. or the poultry unit. The poultry excreta or goats excreta as the food, are the real food for the fishes. So
Okay.
that is also another farming system.
Yes, what they suggested to me that you can go to any mill, you know, like rice mill or wheat mill, and they the waste from there, you when you buy, you add that to your pond for these fish.
That is, if you ask me, that is one concept. That they, but that poultries and the goats excreta, that's a huge manure for the fish.
Okay, okay,
And
got
the
it.
fish excreta are the way
Just
dead fish also
explain
that can be
slightly.
crushed.
Sorry, Roshan. So I would just for the sake of time, we are at 12. So sorry to interrupt that. We are getting into more specifics. So is there a way, Sudhakar, that people can reach out to you with their specific queries? One, and also if there's something you can share, which can be a good primer for most of the things that you talked in your PPT. Are there some links which you feel are quite authoritative in terms of the content that they have that people can refer to as the next
Sure,
step to take
definitely.
it forward?
Sure. What I will do is that I will, my number, my email ID is there with Richa. At any point of time, if someone wants to get in touch with me, they're welcome to get in touch with me. And the references that I took for this particular presentation is mainly from, one is from Subhash Palekar's concept of natural farming, the comparison also from that, and the live case study then from natural farming, that is at Gita, wheat and sugarcane, that is from Uttarakhand. And for the farmer producer organization, that is from the Government of India FPO website, and the NPOP, that is National Program for Organic Production, that is also from Government India website in terms of certification and other aspects. Nothing is beyond that, outside of this periphery. Everything is there within these 4 or 5 units under which I referred that particular stuff, and then I prepare this presentation.
So I would sum up today's session finally in one line, that very useful and very encouraging. So thank you so much, Sudhakar, for sharing your deep experience background with us so freely and openly, and offering to respond to people offline also later. So
Yeah, sure.
all of us, thank you for that, and been a pleasure talking to you. So
Thank you, Jay,
Thank you,
and thanks
Sudhakar,
for
for
thank.
organizing, and Digi.
yeah.
Uh,
So Richa,
Yeah.
up to
yeah,
you to
yeah.
take.
So thank you so much. I would like to thank our speaker, Sudhakar, and yes, to tell all of you, definitely this particular segment is recorded, and we'll be making it available to all our extended IIT Bombay community. Thanks for moderating the event, Digvijay, on my request. I